Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Wayfind Marketing Live. I am Steve Phipps, host of our weekly live stream and podcast. And I'm excited about today's show. Now, if you've watched before, you've listened to the podcast, you've probably heard me say that really the reason that we started this back in March was to do two things. That was number one is to encourage business owners, nonprofit leaders, and number two is to equip business leaders and business owners and nonprofit leaders. And so we do that through tactical insights, but also we love to share stories. And so today, as part of our Navigating Opportunity series, Carolyn Michael Banks with a tour of possibilities is joining us. And I met Carolyn several months ago. I've had the opportunity to work with her in a couple of different capacities. And so Carolyn has a fantastic story. Her business in the tourism industry has certainly been impacted by everything that's going on this year, but she's also had some unique opportunities. And so Carolyn is going to share some lessons learned. Man, I know this is going to be encouraging. I love talking with Carolyn. Every time I have a conversation with her, I always come away smiling. And so I know you're going to as well. And so before I bring her on, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the comments. We'll have opportunity for her to respond to your questions. And so let's go ahead and Carolyn, welcome to Wayfind Marketing Live. Thanks for being with us today.
Great afternoon.
Well, Carolyn, as you heard on the intro, gave everybody a little bit of a preview of you, but I would love to hear a little bit more from you. Just share a little bit your background, what you do, and about your company.
Certainly, and once again, thank you for this opportunity. Again, my name is Carolyn Michael Banks, and I live in Memphis now, and it's been a little over 20 years, which I can hardly believe. But I am a native New Yorker. I'm from the Boogie Down Bronx, and once a New Yorker, always New Yorker. Sorry, Memphis, but I do live here, but my heart is still a Bronx girl. I started this business, Tour Possibilities, back in Philadelphia, when I was downsized from a company, which I thought had devastated me. I said, what am I going to do? I've been with this company for all these years. I moved across the country for them, and now they're letting me go. But it was actually an answer to a prayer, which was, if I had some time, I would start my own tour company. So I started in Philadelphia, met the man of my dreams in Philly who lived in Memphis, and was able to kind of resurrect the tour company here in Memphis about 6 years ago. And we focus on African American history here in Memphis.
Fantastic. So you tell me a little bit about when you started the business and what the past couple of years have looked like leading up to 2020. What were you seeing? What were you experiencing as a business owner here in Memphis?
We launched in 2014. In fact, I'll never forget the date. It was August 6th, the day before my birthday. So I was giving this birthing as a present to myself. But what had happened when I first arrived in Memphis, since I've been in tourism for over 20 plus years, one of the first things I did was take as many tours as I could. And as expected, what I was hearing was not the whole story. And that is what I found in many of the other cities where I did tours, Savannah, Georgia, and Philly, that often traditional tours are void of African American history. And so I started thinking about that. I wasn't quite ready to start the business yet because I still had to get my feet, plus I knew nothing about Memphis, to be honest with you. The joke with my girlfriend is that I used to call her because I would get lost in Memphis all the time. And this was before GPSs were big. And I would call her and literally call her OnStar, like Cadillacs had that thing. And I said, I'm doing so, can you get me out of here? And then I told her, I'm going to start doing a tour. And she says, you can't get out of downtown. So it was a really large learning curve, but it was fascinating. I learned so much. And that's what kind of gives me passion, is being able to learn something I didn't know before. And the fact that the history in the city is so rich and so deep, and the fact that there was not already an African American historical tour offered on a regular basis felt like the timing was And so 6 years ago, it was right.
Absolutely. Well, in Memphis, and I dare say, I mean, I moved to Memphis in 98. So I've been here just a little bit longer than you, so 22 years. And, I dare say that a lot of people who are from Memphis or have been here for a long time really are just unaware of a lot of the history that's here. And so that's fantastic that you're able to come in and launch your business. And so last year, I know based on previous conversation, last year was a good year. You came into 2020 with lots of expectations. So what were you anticipating for 2020 before everything went haywire?
I tell you, I ended last quarter strong. Thank you, God. So I had felt finally, everybody in business talks about when you turn that corner. I had turned it, and so I was getting ready to expand a little bit in terms of what I was doing on a regular basis. I had just finished Emerging Leaders, which is a program here in Memphis. So I had my growth plan ready, which I never really had before. And they invited things I just didn't have quite underneath what I needed to have. So one of the things they emphasized was having your finances in order. Oh, like what a surprise. And that's the thing about these classes. You hear stuff and you go, well, I should know that. But what that class really emphasized was getting my finances together. And I guess maybe because I started to have a few finances, if you will, some dollars, I really needed to know how and what to do with them. And so I was able to contract with a CFO who's on my team, Nita Black, bless you. But what that did for me when COVID hit, I knew that I wasn't going to have income, but at least I knew what I had. I knew how perhaps I needed to work from there forward. All these different resources that were becoming wanted all this information. So you had to have, I was on QuickBooks, but all I knew was that I had QuickBooks, but I was able to get the reports they needed. So it was a learning experience in my finances, number one, that was more than I had ever imagined. But being able to put my hand on resources and information that all these people were asking me for gave me some rest. Because if this would have happened in 2015, 16, I don't know, I wouldn't have been ready. So as hard as it was, and, I thank God for so much, but as hard as it was, he was preparing me to be ready for something crazy. Who knew it would be this?
Yeah. Well, and I think you're absolutely right. I don't know anybody that was planning or prepared for what this year would bring. And of course, I've talk with business owners, work with business owners on a regular basis. And so I've seen the extremes in terms of some industries and some businesses that have just exploded because their services, their products are in demand. In fact, just yesterday, a peer group that I meet with monthly, one of the gentlemen in there works in the hotel industry. And he commented, he said that, of course, the hotel industry has had a catastrophic hit with the exception of extended stay hotels. They're at almost full capacity. So talk a little bit about, obviously, with you being in the tourism industry, that has significant impact. People aren't traveling. Your van tours, putting numerous people into events, and now we're social distancing. So how have you adjusted your business in response to everything that's happened?
Well, the first thing I wanted to share with you was, especially people like myself, very small, if you will, even though we're not small, we are small. The first thing that I had to kind of reconcile with was me. I mean, this pandemic hit my business, but I am my business. So I had to deal with what was happening with me. And when it hit, I went numb for a while. Plans, I'm like, look at plans. I can't even look at myself in the mirror because I didn't really know where it was going. I didn't know who to believe. I didn't know how long it was going to last. And so it took a while to kind of get my head back in the game. And that's when there was what's her name? Joyce Meyer's Battlefield of the Mind. I mean, this thing is powerful. So once I was able to kind of come back to myself, I was able to then start to make some plans and execute. But one of the things I knew I had to do was to figure out how to maintain my business in a different atmosphere. People were saying, well, you have a 10-passenger van. You can get 10 people on there. It's less than no, because I didn't want to put myself or my teammate, Jackie, in harm's way. And I kept saying, there's no way I could clean this van enough. There's no way I just couldn't. So we decided to do something that I was introduced to 2 years prior. You want to talk about a setup, which is a caravan tour. And what it simply is instead of you getting in the van, you stay in your own vehicle. You connect to us via your smart device and Bluetooth. And when you arrive, you get on a Zoom link and you follow the van throughout the city. So you still get the same experience, but there's no strange breath on you. I mean, only the people you know are in your car. So I'm like, this is something that won't just be a stopgap, because I knew it was going to take some work to pull together. So I wanted it to be something that would be sustainable. And that was the first thing that we were able to put together and then launch. And then other things, and it's interesting, if you had asked me, to think about a couple of things, I had to go back and look at my plans. I mean, I knew I wrote them down, but one of my plans was to have a virtual tour. Who knew in 2019 that this would actually be something I needed to work on with some seriousness? And so it kind of like, again, came back to me that this is something else I could work on. So last week, I'm so excited to share this. Last week, I had my very first live virtual field trip with students from the University of Maryland in College Park. And that was just like, gee. So now I have to work on how to continue to market this and do that. But those are just two of the things that have kind of come up in terms of, people don't like the word pivot anymore, but that works for me. It was how to do something else, So yeah.
So a couple of things that I want to go back to. One is with your caravan tours. I love that. Well, one, even before that, as you mentioned, the battlefield of the mind, and I think you're right. I think everybody was reeling in sort of just the stages of grief of just getting to a point of just accepting that things are what they are right now, and then sort of regrouping, figuring out, okay, I've got to do something. You were looking for something sustainable, and so I love the use of technology. That you're using that to do these caravan tours now, do it in the safety of your own vehicle. And the virtual tour, and that's fantastic. You've mentioned that in our mastermind group. And one of the things that is interesting to me, and I've seen this in my own experience and talking with other business owners as well, is you mentioned that was something that you thought about in 19 of doing a virtual tour. And so one thing that I think is worth noting is you were already making plans. You had ideas on the drawing board, and it was just an issue of timing. And so I think one encouragement for a business owner, nonprofit leader, even in the midst of all this, is think ahead. In what are some things that you can do, especially in light of where we are now. But this provided maybe the unwelcome, but at the same time, it created an opportunity, providential opportunity for you to be able to now even reach beyond Memphis. And so talk a little bit more, because I know you have other things going on outside of Memphis as well.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen here in Memphis first, before we move to the outside, is I've almost completed now my audio driving tour, because I wanted to find something else that people could do if they couldn't get, because we do tours twice a day, 6 days a week. But when I travel, I'm not always available when the tour guide's available. Yeah. So this is going to be app based, and it's GPS located aware. And so as you drive through, my voice comes through your speakers, and I tell you what you're looking at, tell you where to turn and all that. So that's going to be launching relatively soon. But this virtual tour really in developmental stages. And my premise is for those who don't get here to Memphis, because we know travel is going to be strange for a while. But even before the pandemic, and what I had mentioned in 2019 was, how can I bring what I do to people if they can't get to me? So either, if you're in Paris, Tennessee, or Paris, France, or Brooklyn, or whatever, you will still have a chance to experience Memphis, because for some people, Memphis is just not on the map. Yeah. It was not on my bucket. It was not a place where I was planning on going. But now that I've had a chance to experience Memphis, I want to share that with so many people. And even our local tourism bureau, I don't even think they get all the richness that's here. Because, we've lived on Elvis and barbecue for like forever. But there is so much more to this city that giving people an opportunity to get a glimpse of it. And that might even persuade them to come when the time is right. So, yeah, that's where I'm going.
Absolutely. Now, this year, of course, COVID, of course, is one of the big stories of this year. But as you and I talked earlier, with other things going on in our country right now, the divides, especially racially, and you are at this unique intersection of highlighting African American history, and so what are you seeing? What are some of the opportunities that you have experienced in terms of being able to take what you do and have positive impact on our community?
I think it's a way to look at history. To be honest with you, when I was growing up, history was not my favorite subject. I had no connection to it. It was wars, it was dates, nothing to do with me. Yeah. But the one thing I've had the opportunity to experience is that knowing history gives us some context. So there'll be times I'm looking on Facebook and people saying, well, the country's never been this divided. I said, let's look at our country historically. Mm-hmm. Let's go back a little bit. This country has really been divided for a really long time. Right. And what we're seeing today is really not new. It just looks different. But it looks really different if you have no context. When you had a time when people, even we're not even talking in slavery times, when we couldn't drink from the same water fountains, we couldn't be on the same transportation. Those were not just thoughts. These were laws that this country was governed by. Mm-hmm. So then we got to a point where we got some of those rights. How exciting that was. The amendments were coming through. And now we're looking at things that appear to be as if we're turning time back. And what I have found, Steve, is in talking with people as I do tours, and the one thing I loved about the 10-passenger van was that it led to opportunities to have conversation, and people would say to me, like, I'm not understanding why you're so, not personally, but why Black folks are so angry about stuff. Right. And it was because of that person's world that they lived in. Many of us are in bubbles we don't even know we're in. So if you have not had any experience in connecting to the African American experience, a lot of this seems, I'm not understanding it, and I understand that. And right. when there's a great book out years ago, The Miseducation of the Negro. And in honesty, our country has been miseducated for a really long time. And we've had a tendency of not including a lot of information, not just the struggles of African Americans. We weren't even including the triumphs of African Americans. Yeah. So often people's vision is of what they see on the morning and afternoon and evening news, and it's so skewed as to what the African American community is all about. So my role is to just lead you into a different way, perhaps, of seeing it that you may not have seen before.
Yeah. That's well, and our city, as you've already mentioned, is rich with African American history. And so I think it's fantastic that you have this opportunity not only to impact people, just educating them historically and pivoting your business and adjusting so you can continue to operate and serve people, but also to have a positive impact on our culture. And to, as you said, help people look back and get context for the reality of African American experiences. And all of a sudden, when that happens, I think that helps people get a broader view. And even though people from however you want to organize people, we're not always all going to agree or see things the same way. But it's important to have context. It's important to have that understanding. And so I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the opportunities that you have, again, not only for your business, but just to have impact on our community. And, it's Yeah, there's so much to be learned, and understanding, empathy, et cetera, that flows from that. So thank you for what you're doing. Now, we've got a few minutes left, and so I want to give you some time because I love your heart. I love that you love serving people and giving back. So I want to give you a few minutes. You've learned a lot over the past 6 months. That may have been more of a schooling kind of experience than maybe what you've had in any season before. But share, what are some lessons you've learned? What are some things that, if you had the opportunity to sit down across the table from a business owner, a nonprofit leader, and share some words of encouragement, share some lessons learned, what would you tell that person?
The first thing is understanding that there really is purpose even in this mess. This experience has gotten me clear on that. There have been many things that have happened in my life, and I'm like, what's that all about? But I just know, and I've always been told, and my who's no longer with us, but who talks to me constantly, she always told me there was purpose in everything, even in the hard stuff, and sometimes more in the hard stuff than the easy stuff. Because she said, as a basic, we learn more when we're in crisis. We don't learn as well when things are going well. So this pandemic has given me a chance to start looking at purpose. And so the letters ATOP stands for Tour Possibilities, yes. And within the 6 months, I'm shifting it to really kind of recognize that it is a tour on purpose, because I'm seeing the platform that I've been given as an opportunity to do more than just what I possibly had initially imagined, which was just, telling the story. I think I can now tell the story from a different place, because I think we're at a point in history where we've got to get it. I mean, we've got to really come to grips with some stuff. And I believe there's a way to do that. So this pandemic for me has given me a platform, even though I had it already, to do more than I had initially planned. The other thing is, for entrepreneurs, is to know that what you do is not easy, because if it was, everybody else would be doing it. And to give yourself some grace. I mean, I'm the biggest critic I have of myself. And there have been times I may have been just a little too hard, because sometimes when you're too hard, you get paralyzed, that analysis and paralysis, whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
And to give yourself a little grace, because this is a difficult time, a time that no one has ever seen before. And the thing that also happened in the pandemic is that it slowed me down. I felt like I had to be everywhere. Everywhere, all the time. I was running this race where I wasn't necessarily getting somewhere, but I was moving a lot. So the pandemic actually stopped me. I have been able to sit still a little more and be comfortable with sitting still. Entrepreneurs sometimes have a hard time being still, because we figure we got to figure it. I've gotten more accomplished when I've been still than I had been when I was running this crazy race where if I didn't make every meeting, I thought I was going to lose my mind. Now I'm running to my computer, 5 minutes before the meeting, and no one has to know that my slippers are still on. So, it's just, I've been loving that. So just knowing that this is for a reason, and know that you're not alone in this. Being able to ask for help. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we put our S on our chest and we think we're super people, which sometimes we have to be. But sometimes I think we got to take that S off and really realize that we're just human. We are just human, and the human can do but so much, and be okay with that sometimes. And know that there are resources in Memphis that if you can find, they're not even that hard to find, but you kind of have to connect to them. And I have been doing that, and sometimes they've not been comfortable connections, because sometimes meant you had to bare your soul. Like when I was with NABO and we had the great class and they wanted to look at our finances, and that put me naked. I was that. But let me tell you, if I had not done that, I would not be here today, Steve. They looked at my finances and said, we need to talk today, if not yesterday. Because I was close to going under and didn't even know it. So sometimes you have to bare your soul. Sometimes you have to bare things that you don't want people to know. But if you're ready to continue to move, you do that. You take that, but it really can help you go. So go, go, go.
Carolyn, my internet connection went a little wonky there, so I may have missed a little bit of what you said. So hopefully that didn't interfere with what you were saying. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love a couple of things that you said that I want to make sure to go back to. Give yourself grace. As you said, running a business it's hard, even in the best of seasons. It's normal to have restless, sleepless nights even then. And so especially now, I love that your perspective is that there's purpose in it, and there is. And some of the best opportunities that any of us experience tend to come out of those difficulties that we wouldn't necessarily go into voluntarily, but that end up being some of the most character shaping, opportunity creating experiences that we have. And then, too, just slowing down, taking a minute to breathe. And I was a book that I've been reading through just in terms of focus. And it's not just about being busy. Anybody can be busy, but it's being busy doing the right things and having those goals and those plans and making the adjustments as needed. And as you also said, here in Memphis, there are a ton of resources for small businesses. Small Business Development Center, Rory Thomas and his team. As you mentioned, NAWBO, Epicenter. I mean, there are a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Score. I mean, there are lots of resources available. You just got to look for it. And so, well, Carolyn, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us up.
Wow, fast.
I know. It goes by really quick. I always have to keep an eye on the clock because we could easily continue this conversation for another 30 or 40 minutes. I have no doubt. Carolyn, thank you for being on today as a part of our Navigating Opportunity series. For our viewers, our listeners, thank you for joining us today. I would encourage you, go to, you've got those little signs. You've got something for everything. Go to atopmemphis.com. You can learn more about Carolyn, her company there. You find links to Facebook. You sign up for email. But go learn more. And you can get in touch with Carolyn through her website if you want to get in touch with her about any of the other things that she's talked about. And we'll have the podcast of this available within the next couple of days. So if you want to go back and listen to it, or if you happen to be catching this on the podcast, or you're listening to this, that website for ATOP is atopmemphis.com. And so be sure to join us next Friday at noon Central Time. And as we continue our Navigating Opportunity series, have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Carolyn, thanks again for joining us.